Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo. With your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to a midweek episode of Talking Buffalo, part of the Blue Wire Network. Thank you for locking in, whether it's the audio side, the video side. Today is Wednesday. Well, at least when this podcast is dropping, it's Wednesday. We're taping this on Tuesday morning. This is the second of 6 Buffalo Bills weekly mock drafts that we are doing. And as always, for this exercise, I'm joined by my good friend, Aaron Quinn from Cover One.
Yo,
What's going on, buddy, man? How you doing?
I am so tired today, Pat. We didn't even
Me
talk
too.
about it offline, dude. My everyone in my house has been sleeping in way later than we should. We are rushing out the door every day. It is full, like yelling, like we gotta go. And I'm tired. When I get home, it's tired. But I'm excited to talk about the Bills. I'm excited to get back into the swing of things here. We had a half day yesterday in our school district, so it didn't really feel like a true Monday. So this is really like the kickoff of my week as a stay-at-home dad here. Now the kids are back in school and excited to chat with you. But this March weather is driving me nuts because when I was dropping those kids off, Pat, it was snowing and cold and dreary, and I'm looking out my window now and it's sunny and nice. And it's probably the only hour of sunshine we're going to get today, and I'm sitting here.
I'm looking, as you're saying, as if you're watching on the video, I'm not looking away from you, but as you started talking about the weather, it just literally, again, we're taping this at 9:30 a.m. on Tuesday morning. YouTube side, this will be available tonight. Podcast side, Wednesday morning. But anyway, you talked about the weather, and I literally just 5 minutes before we started taping this, I put on Facebook a very sarcastic, condescending tweet about or status about Buffalo. It says, you see Buffalo, there's this thing called the sun. Sure, it's not out this morning, even though it was briefly. And in fact, it's only been out for all to see and enjoy in like for the past 68 days.
Yeah.
But it does exist in all of its glory, I think.
It's up there.
Oh God, this has been, we've had colder winters. We've had winters with more snow. But we've never, I can't remember a winter where I've seen the sun less, like a season, I should say, where the sun's just been out less. Every single day has just been, it's been cold and it's been gloomy and gray.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I'm sure it's on averages and that we're just living in recency bias, but it sure feels like it. A big gardener here, and I've been like slowly getting some of my early spring stuff into the ground, and I'm just out here worried. Very worried and like throwing extra mulch on because it just feels unseasonable to me. I am ready for the season to turn. But yeah, this is bad. March is the worst. I think October, that late October shift, early November is terrible because it's like it happens real fast and it starts to get real cold. And then this time of year where it is still lingering, these are the worst parts of the Buffalo seasonal shifts.
Yeah, it's just, and you really get that anticipation of nicer weather, which is coming. I mean, sooner or later. And then, to Buffalo's credit, man, it really, the city.
Then we'll be complaining it's too hot. That will be
not me. I won't be complaining that it's too hot. So we're gonna get to a lot of stuff today, of course, highlighted by our second mock. Again, we're doing 6 of these, no trade. And by the way, if you happen to be watching this on the YouTube side, I don't know if it's StreamYard, I don't know if it's my connection, but my camera's been a little bit wonky, so I'm kind of. My image is going in and out. Hopefully that doesn't get too bad. But anyway, like I said, we're not going to do trades again. We didn't do trades last week. We're not going to do trades again this week. However, next week in our third mock, we'll start to work in some trades. We say it all the time. This is kind of an exercise, and I'm still at the point right now where I want to discuss some straightforward scenarios with the Bills, assuming that Brandon Beane doesn't move up or down the board. I also want to get to a couple other things. Before that, though, I just want to ask you this quickly because this was pretty big news on Monday. Lamar Jackson, and this isn't from a source, and this is lying season, whether it's free agency, whether it's the draft.
Sure.
He came out himself. So the source is Lamar Jackson, and he says that he asked for a trade on March 2nd. Ultimately, do you think it ends up happening? And if so, give me 1 or 2 teams where you could see him playing with next year.
Yeah, I don't know the odds on whether or not it happens. I think you have to at this point if you're Baltimore. It seems like that relationship is beyond repair.
Yes.
What's kind of crazy is how it has unfolded over the last like year and a half where I always really thought of Baltimore as this stout organization that was just like their model worked, and no matter what they did, similar to the Steelers. Like I think the Steelers have more success in the NFL over the last 15, 20 years than people want to give them credit for. Like it's not the level of the Patriots, but their level of success should be probably admired and talked about more because that's hard to have that type of sustained success. But when you actually look at it, like Harbaugh has not been to the playoffs in a long time. This team has been sort of middling drought era team here for a little bit. They have not won playoff games in a long time. Like they're probably better than the drought era Bills at a time. But they're close. They're that type of team. They're trending in that direction of just, hey, you're kind of spinning your tires here. And then now your superstar, this is playing out publicly. I do think some of it is Lamar's side and not having an agent, whether that's legitimate or not. That is the world that the NFL works in. If you don't have an agent, there's sharks out there on both sides, and they're going to try to take advantage of that, whether that's putting the narrative in the media, using those media connections. I don't think that Lamar has that ability. And so that's why you're seeing him out here tweet. You didn't really see that he requested that trade. If he had an agent, that news would be out there. That's where a lot of this news comes from. And agents are snakes. They're liars. They will put something out there to try to just drum up what they think the popular narrative is to see if they can shift the negotiation, even if it works or not, whether or not it works. So it's a pretty messy situation for him right now, just to sort of preface all of it. I really don't know if they're going to be able to get a trade to work out, because you also are going to have owners really digging in their heels to not give all that guaranteed money, right? Like this is a tight knit group. And once one chip falls, that house of cards starts to fall. And Cleveland already did that, right? Like Cleveland did. NFL owners, there's all those memes out there, the rest of the NFL ownership hating Cleveland because of giving Deshaun that money. I'm torn. I want players to get money. I don't know where it ends. I don't know where the salary cap ends. I don't know what's real and what's not. And so I want him to get his money. I think he earned it from that organization. I'm not sure he's going to get it. To me, the one that makes the most sense would be the New England Patriots. I hate to say it because I think they could formulate something that works and is special and can work with that old ass coach, Bill Belichick. I think they can make that work. I don't like it. I really respect Lamar. But that to me would be the one that a team that would be willing to just like, F it. We got to go all in on something. This is available. Let's take our last chance. Bill's only got a few years left. It just makes sense to me that if you're going to have one team go all in on something, it would be them. But I've heard a bunch of other teams being in on it. I think anyone that needs a quarterback should be, right?
I have a sleeper team. We discussed it on the podcast on Tuesday with my man, Joe Yurden. He happens to be a fan of this team. Detroit Lions, football fit wise. So if you're going to trade Lamar, let's just say you're Baltimore and it comes down to, all right, this guy's never going to sign with us long-term. We know that. We got to trade him.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want to, you're certainly not going to trade him inside the division. If you can get him out of the AFC, you might want to do that too. It just makes great football sense. You look at the Detroit Lions. First of all, they're a team that's on the rise. They got two really good receivers. They have
2 first-round picks.
They have 2 first-round picks. So they got tons of draft capital. They have the third most cap room right now. They have the third most cap room in the NFL. So money won't be an issue to make it work. Again, he's a great player. If you're Lamar and you have any say at all where you might end up going at all, you probably want to get out of the AFC. So you're not trying to go through Mahomes and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and maybe Herbert, a couple other guys. You get to the NFC. And, I mean, there's one issue with Detroit is Jared Goff had a hell of a year last year. And it's not like the dude's 37, 38 years old. He's 28 years old. Yeah, he's all right. I mean, he's certainly replaceable.
Keep him.
Yeah. Sure. Well,
I don't know their cap. Yeah.
He's got his cap hit for the next 2 years. He's under contract for 2 more years and at like 31 million each year. So
who's going to take that then? You're just going to have to eat some dead money.
I don't know. I don't know how it works, man. I don't know how it works.
Here, I'll look up his contract, but
I just think of Detroit and I'm like, that would be a really good sleeper fit for Lamar.
I mean, you hope it's not the Jets. They say they're out on that and it's fully invested in Rodgers. I would be more terrified of the Jets getting Lamar than I am of Aaron Rodgers getting Lamar, right? Like, I don't want him. The Patriots I can live with because I do think you can contain that. They'll be sneaky, annoying, make the playoffs some years, have the potential to go on a run. He's that special of a player. But with the Jets, that type of roster, and I have I think the Lions are on par with the Jets in terms of if they get a quarterback, like watch out. That roster is just that missing piece away. And they could be good enough to run it back with Jared Goff and make the playoffs in that division and continue to build on that and wait a year. But they might be a team that could go all in on something like that. They got to have some success soon, right? They got to give that fan base something.
And they have, again, having 2 first-round picks, even if Detroit doesn't trade
in 2 seconds, you could just lose those and you're back to a normal draft. You have a first and a second.
They could easily take a quarterback with the 6th pick of the draft. You know what I mean? And even if he sits for a year or two, because Jared Goff is good enough. Detroit's a team to monitor. I think ultimately Aaron Rodgers is definitely going to end up when it's all said and done, he's going to the Jets. And
what's the holdup though? Why has it got to be dramatic?
Oh, Green Bay's in no rush. They're trying to get as much as they can, try to extract as much as they can. Just like I feel like, and we'll talk about DeAndre Hopkins in a few minutes here. Why does Arizona have to rush right now to trade him? You know, what's the motivation for Arizona to hurry up and get it over with right now? You know, they're going to wait for somebody to maybe bend or crack and give them the best offer. I think that's what Green Bay's
I just think it's all bullshit. We're all adults. You know where the offers are going to go. We're not. Everyone bullshits each other, man. That's all this is. Everything's a bunch of bullshit.
I agree, man. But anyway, Lamar Jackson, that's going to be a fascinating thing to see over the coming days, weeks, maybe even months. Talk some Buffalo Bills, some news on Monday. I'm going to be honest with you. So the Bills signed Taylor Rapp, the safety from the Rams, to a 1-year contract.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was still out there. I like him. Mm-hmm. I don't know all the free agents. Like I can't go up and down the list like a lot of other people, but he's a name that I recognize right away. Because I remember doing some studying up because I thought for sure Jordan Poyer was gone. And I thought Taylor Rapp would have been a very reasonable replacement for him. Turns out Poyer resigns. The Bills get Rapp anyway. He's only 25 years old. He's a former 2nd-round pick in 2019. You know, it's easy. And I tweeted about this. PFF graded him really well. And it's really easy to fit the narrative. Like when you want to use their grades for, to talk up a player, you talk PFF up down. When they give them a shitty grade, you kind of put them on blast, whatever. But for what it's worth, like I said, he graded really high with them. Yeah. Feels like a pick that's going to get him really good depth right now. There's some looks that they can use him in right now, even with Hyde and Poyer, if they're both stay healthy. And also it's a chance to, potentially he's in the system for a year and he can become the long-term starter if Hyde or Poyer are gone after this year. I don't know. Your thoughts on Taylor Rapp?
I think it's a small win in free agency at this point in free agency. I think those are good. You pile up again. I'm pretty sure I said on your show last week, just slowly improving depth, improving on positions, improving for the future, getting younger at spots that you're trying to improve on and getting guys that you believe are ascending players. In my opinion, that's a really good strategy when you have a good roster and you're trying to incrementally change to get over the hump. But at the same time, and we'll talk about the Hopkins stuff, you are also seeing the ability, at least the willingness to have some aggression if there's something out there that is going to be a home run. But if you're not getting that pitch down the middle of the plate, Brandon Beane's happy to take singles. He's happy to take singles and even look at a few balls. Like there's been guys he's been in on and he's let go. And I think there's been some disagreement with social media is willing to make those moves and people are frustrated that Brandon Beane didn't. But I think when you step back and look at this offseason as a whole, including this move for Rapp, you look at, hey, he's been conservative so far in caring about the comp picks, which is some of what people have wanted, knowing that you lost Tremaine Edmonds. So there's a conservative nature to this offseason and definitely trying to get that additional asset. That's a good thing while still adding to the depth and getting those young ascending players. So I think it's a shout out to the pro personnel scout department. You see guys, I know I puff him up all the time, but Eric Turner, he really knows what he's doing and he's really in tune with this team. And you can think he's a homer or think that we cover one of our homers a little bit, but he finds what players can do. And you see why the pro personnel scouts, that's what scouts are looking for. They're not looking at the things that players don't do well. They're looking on tape and seeing what can they do and how does that fit into our system. And all these guys seem to fit real nice into the needs that they had going into the draft. And so that's exactly how Brandon Beane wants this free agency to play out. But it'll be interesting to see because I think the hot name is Hopkins. We've been riding on that. It was OBJ for a while. Regardless of what Brandon Beane's saying about whether he's in or not on these, it seems like there's a lot of smoke surrounding the Buffalo Bills being in on anybody that becomes available. They're at least kicking the tires pretty heavily on any big name that comes available. So it might not be Hopkins. It might not be OBJ. Other guys are going to come available, shake loose, whether it's after the draft, in training camp. I expect the Bills, I've said it since the season ended, Brandon Beane's itching to get another big name on this roster, but that's why he's got to do free agency the way he's done it so far and structure things the right way.
I really like the signing of Taylor Rapp. Look, man, last year you look at the safeties, and we don't know how DeMar Hamlin's going to be, if he's going to be.
There's a lot of question marks.
Yeah, there's a lot of question marks, but all I can tell you is this: I just. And to be fair, I have not seen fans complain about the signing at all. But
no, not at all.
Those out there who might be,
this one's been pretty universally cool.
Yeah. Let's not forget, Dean Marlowe and Jaquan Johnson,
yes,
and Cam Lewis having to be back there. This is a big upgrade with no other reason than depth, just alone. And this team.
Yeah. And
go ahead.
A couple other things on it. I think Von Miller played with him, so I think you get maybe a little bit of GM Von Miller in this. Like, I would think that they talked to him about this, having played and gone on a Super Bowl run with this guy and started a number of games. So I think you get a mentor in the room probably vouching for this guy with the staff, whether or not that has say or not, I don't know. But you're talking about the unknown of Hamlin and beyond that part. There is, as much as excited as I am to get Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde back together and put on another run for a Super Bowl, they are hitting ages where missed games are a real thing. Managing that workload is a real thing. Like, Jordan Poyer really battled through an entire season last year to be in there. Like, I kept saying on our pod, he was held together with braces and duct tape by the end of the season. Like, he was a shell of himself towards the end because he just physically was injured. Like, he couldn't do some of the things that you expected him to do. Now you have a guy where if there is some of those dings and dents, you maybe have a little bit of more leeway where you can rest a guy. You can sit a guy. I'm not saying play your worst thing, but have it on more of a rotation or get some snaps off. Certain personnel settings, bring in a guy that, Greg Thompson loves the thick dime. Like, he wants that additional DB on the field. I think this is a move that says, hey, now you probably have more of that flexibility. This guy plays at every single level of the defense. He's got snaps everywhere. You can move him around like a chess piece and have Taryn and Taylor Rapp with Micah and Jordan Poyer playing their safety games behind. It just adds a new level and a wrinkle, at least on paper. I don't know how much the Bills will actually do, all the stuff we're projecting in our brains, all the galaxy football stuff we're coming up with, but at least you see the vision. You see a player that can come in and do that and isn't necessarily relied on to be a starter, but could be in the future. Getting him now, getting him in the building, you get that first right to make an extension with him if he plays well for you before he would even hit free agency next year. That would be the ultimate win, is you get a little bit of playtime from this guy. You see that he could be the future. You get him. Maybe Hamlin comes back too, and now you're robust at safety, where 3 months ago it was like, dude, we don't even know who's going to be lined up at safety next year. Now you have a little bit of a buffer there. It's a good move for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, man, last year Dean Marlowe was inactive for a bunch of weeks, and then he gets to the playoffs and he's got to start. I mean, it's just I really like what the Bills have done in terms of role players and depth so far in free agency. Brandon Beane did say on Monday, I mean, he confirmed that the Bills, he projects them having a third round comp for losing Edmonds, and basically said, we ain't signing nobody who's going to put that in jeopardy right now in free agency anyway. So
yeah, so kudos to all the comp fans out there. It's your year,
for sure. Also news from Monday, Sean McDermott more or less confirmed that they're not going outside the building for any defensive coordinator, and that he is going to be the one who's going to be calling the plays. I don't think that's surprising at all. You don't think that's surprising, do you?
No, that wasn't news. And I agree with him that it's him and the staff. This is a good staff, regardless of what people want to say. Leslie Frazier was a good coach too. There's a lot of guys with a lot of experience on this staff. I trust it up against anyone in the league. So I'm excited. I think the big excitement going into the season is what will be the differences. I think there has to be. They're two humans making play calls in a moment. Like, you're going to see maybe McDermott leans back towards his aggression when he was a play caller. I think that could be really interesting. There's some players on this team that I think play well to that and that style. So it'll be an interesting offseason from the perspective of the unknown. Like, how does it change it? Or are we just going to see the same thing we've seen? And it was Sean McDermott's defense all along, and that's just what we're getting. That's the storyline to me, I think, is the most intriguing, but not news in that I think we all anticipated that playing out this way.
Agreed 100%. So we mentioned DeAndre Hopkins a few minutes ago. There's been a lot of smoke now for weeks that the Bills were the favorite to land him in a trade. Brandon Beane downplayed that talk on Monday, which, whatever, I don't care about that. I know how GMs operate. That doesn't really move the needle for me, whether I think the Bills are going to ultimately land Hopkins or not. Aaron Wilson, a very credible reporter insider last week, said that the Bills were the front runner. I know a few people who were expecting, and maybe they still are expecting, DeAndre Hopkins to end up, when it's all said and done, in Buffalo. I will say, though, again, being kind of downplayed it on Monday, and then late night on Monday, Tim Graham tweeted that unless something significantly changes, the Bills are not trading for Hopkins. I mean, he didn't say I don't expect. He said the Bills aren't trading for Hopkins.
Yeah.
You and I both know Tim fairly well. Tim doesn't just throw shit out there for effect. You know what I mean? He does his homework, if nothing else.
Yeah, it was early morning. It was like 12:30.
Yeah, probably. Oh, and listen, he might have been home on the couch or at his desk. He might have been at Elmo's on his 10th flight of beer. Who knows?
No, if he's at the, my guess is
when he puts something out there, I tend to believe what Tim says.
I'm guessing Tim's out at the owners' meetings. These are the places to be. This is where I want to give people with credentials a little bit of kudos in that I don't believe there's a huge advantage of access to credentials. I'll come out and say it, but where I do think there's an advantage is some of the things of I think you can get them for the combine, but getting to the combine and being in those meetings and the networking, the owners meeting is a big one that I think a lot of people in the blogging community maybe overlook, where there's a lot of access. You have every decision maker from every team in town. It's the same type of thing as the combine. They're out at the bars too and out eating dinner. And I do think there's something to building those relationships that matters in being able to confirm information and get good stories. And I know Tim I respect him more than anyone that is out in sports journalism. I know he's there to help people. I know that he believes in at least in the integrity of the things that he's reporting.
Absolutely.
And so I do think he got this information, but also, like, to your point, it is lying season. This also is nothing new. This wasn't news necessarily. It's just that it's coming from the most legitimate source that is talking about these things. And we know where he is and probably who the people he's talking to are. But we heard that the Chiefs were going to be out because of they weren't going to be willing to eat any money. As soon as they said, hey, these three teams are out because Arizona is just unwilling to eat the money, my signal was like, well, then how are the Bills in? Right? Like, this doesn't make sense. I know the cap's not real, but geez, guys, like, this doesn't make sense otherwise. So that's not news that Arizona is probably being a little bit, they're dug in probably a little bit more than they should be on what the actual market value is. That's either going to self-correct or they're going to have a really messy offseason. Like, there's nothing Brandon Beane can do about that. I think if they're willing to be reasonable, the Bills are still going to come back in as the top trade contender. But it sounds like the rest of the NFL is on the same page with the Bills. Arizona's just way too dug in on what they aren't willing to eat in cap and what they want in draft capital. That doesn't match up. And the Bills are going to say, hey, we'd love to have you, DeAndre, but until you figure out this bullshit with your team, like, we're out.
Let's just operate for the sake of discussion right now. I mean, this is, we're going to lead into a mock draft. Let's operate under the assumption that the Bills don't end up trading for DeAndre Hopkins. Let's say Hopkins ends up going to
that's how I'm operating.
Cleveland.
Yeah.
Doing it that way, all right? Sure. And we'll also operate under the assumption that they don't sign Beckham, which I don't think is going to happen because I don't.
We're making currently no more moves from Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Right. The roster is Taylor Rapp's the last
signing to the draft. Let's just operate under that premise. Wide receivers. If that doesn't happen, if they don't get Hopkins, they don't trade for him. They don't trade for him during the draft or whatever it may be. And they decide that we need to add a weapon, and it's going to have to be a rookie now through the draft. Talk about a couple guys here. Now, JSN, the kid from Ohio State, is going to be gone. Let's not bother talking about him. Quentin Johnston, I don't think he's going to be there. Jordan Addison from USC, very likely not. Three guys that I wanted to get your specific thoughts on.
Okay.
Two of them might be there at pick 27. Zay Flowers from Boston College and Josh Downs from North Carolina, a name that I'm starting to hear more and more about. Those are potential mid to late first round guys. Tank Dell is a guy that probably is not going to go in the top 27, but he's also not going to be there at 59 either. So maybe you move down or move up in the second round, whatever it may be. But those three are the receivers that kind of wanted to get thoughts from you on. Flowers, Downs, Dell. If you like it, do you like any of these three specifically? Do you think they would be really good fits for the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, I like them all. You know what's kind of crazy to me is I'm very interested in the shift at wide receiver this year and how it's perceived. All college football season long, I heard this was a bad class for wide receivers, that this was not going to be a class. And I do agree that it probably doesn't have the ultra high end Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson necessarily that's going to come in and be a top 5 receiver almost immediately. That might not exist, but I think in comparison to last year's, or say take over the last 8 years, I think it's right on par in terms of like how deep this class is in terms of productive NFL wide receivers coming into the league all at one time. It is a little bit undersized of a class, so it would be nice to not necessarily get in on a guy that maybe people think are one-dimensional, but I think some of that's changing too. Like, I do think Zay Flowers can play a little bit everywhere. I think people are pegging him. He could come in and be a slot type guy, but I think he can play a little inside outside. We saw that with Deontay Hardy. I mean, this guy's 5'6", and they were still playing him inside and outside. I think creative offensive play callers are sort of shifting that around in the NFL, but these are some undersized wide receivers that we're talking about. So I think that might be the knock on them, but we just rattled off. You just rattled off what, 4 guys ahead of these guys, and now you rattle off another 3 that are projected in this possible first round. It's like six dudes in the first round, and then we're shitting on this wide receiver class. Like, well, the class isn't that good. I don't know. I think I'm torn on how people place value on wide receiver, where to do it and when to do it. Because I think there's a lot of options to get guys. We're talking about trading for DeAndre Hopkins. I think you could look at any dude in the 2024 free agency class, and those could all be trade targets, because the value of wide receivers, teams don't want to give them big contracts because you can draft one. There's always a plethora of them in the draft. Or do you just take that guy if he falls to you at 27? I like all these receivers to get to the point. I'm sure we'll talk about them some here as we get into this mock. It depends how the board falls at that first pick, but I like them enough to add them to this team right away, and I can see the vision. So it depends how the board falls and where things are at. But I think the Bills, that's what Brandon Beane has done now. He set himself up with a lot of options to add that best player available in those first couple rounds.
What happens if the Bills do nothing at receiver? Let's just say they don't trade for Hopkins. Let's say they don't even draft a receiver until maybe round 4 or 5, a developmental guy. Yeah. How satisfied, how good would you be with this unit as it stands if the Bills go basically into week 1? So you got Diggs, you got Davis, you got Shakir. Hardy or Shakir in the slot. You got Trent Sherfield, a kid who I actually kind of like a lot. That's your receiving unit right now.
Right.
If the Bills were to do nothing at wide receiver, let's say they decide we got to address linebacker first. We got to address the defensive line more. We want to go get ourselves a right tackle we really like to slip to us in the second round, whatever it may be.
Yep.
And it doesn't work out. They don't get the receiver, and they don't trade for one either. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but it could happen. If that does, how are you going to feel about this team right now with the wide receiving position?
Assuming nobody gets hurt, I'm good, right? Like I think if you roll that out as a starting group for the season and nobody takes significant injury, I'm good. But to me, it's reminiscent of sometimes how the defensive back room has been just a hair thin, and that can spiral out of control on you real quick, and you're pulling guys off the street and you're struggling. I mean, we were there last year with the wide receiver room a little bit, right? Like bringing in John Brown, bringing in Cole Beasley. You were really grasping at straws to get some production going. It'd be nice to have a little bit, at least more depth and promising depth that could come in and give you production this year if needed in a situation like that. But if I could promise Gabe Davis isn't going to get hurt and Khalil Shakir is going to just, continue where he is, I like this room. I like the additions of Hardy and Sherfield. So I like what they've done to round it out. But yeah, I want more. And I'm also willing to say more can be that top end talent. Like I think the sky is the limit for where you can go. But you know how I like to talk about the floor all the time of this team. This was a good offense a year ago. And I believe that a lot of the problems on the offense was the lack of utilization of guys, not just in that wide receiver room, but tight end and running back as well. You've added to those weapons in the running back room. Utilize those guys, and I think you could do something as long as everyone stays healthy. But I'm always for advocating for adding more, especially while this window's wide open. Let's draft. Yeah, go ahead.
One last thing. Then we're going to draft. So, the Bills always go into drafts where you could see 1 or 2, maybe 3 needs per se. But at least in recent years, they've had plenty of talent. I can't remember the last time I've seen a more glaring need on this football team than we see right now at middle linebacker. You could sell me on the wide receivers. You could sell me on, the defensive end or the defensive tackle position needing an upgrade, or you can sell me on, let's run it back. This team's good enough there. I don't give a shit if it's Sean McDermott or Brandon Beane or Aaron Quinn or Greg Thompson or Joe Marino, Bruce Olin, you name it. I don't give a shit. Anybody who tries to tell me that the Bills are going to go into training camp with the battle between Terrell Dodson and Terrell Bernard for the starting middle linebacker job and maybe Spector in the mix, I think you're nuts. It ain't going to happen. They're going to find a middle linebacker in this draft, or they're going to trade for one after the draft. Something, I don't know. But this team has a glaring hole right now in middle linebacker. It ain't Dodson. He's not the guy. Or Bernard. I just don't believe it. How do you, if you're not valuable enough to your team as a rookie, I'm talking about Bernard here, to even be on the active roster for the playoffs, then you're going to become the team's starting middle linebacker on a team with Super Bowl aspirations. Bro, I just don't buy it. Not in 1 year like that. Sorry. You don't agree. I can already tell.
Well, no, I'm torn on it because I am actually really intrigued about Bernard. I've been critical of the pick, but they did spend a 3rd round pick on this guy, right? We've been critical of the Bills for not being willing to play their rookies. We point to the Kansas City Chiefs and say, hey, look what they did. They trusted in rookies in 3rd round, 4th round, late round picks to come in and do it. You invested this capital in this guy, like go out and play him. And I do think I alluded to earlier that one of my excitements for this offseason was seeing maybe the transition to a more aggressive defense from Sean McDermott. I think Bernard plays into that. Like he thrives in creating some havoc and blitzing and just sort of the way Milano does, like playing with his hair on fire a little bit. I don't think he's a guy that you want back reading coverages. So, and I also think you could work with a couple smaller linebackers if they continue to get bigger up front, which they haven't done yet. But I do think you could address that maybe a little bit in this draft and maybe change your philosophy on defense a little bit to having more of a cohesive unit in smaller athletic linebackers and a nickel and bringing in a Taylor Rapp and kind of merging more towards that hybrid defensive back as a unit and not individual pieces type of a game plan. That could signal that, and he could be that player. So I'm a little bit torn on, hey, this guy's definitely not worth the pick he was at. And he didn't play last year, so he sucks. But I understand that hope is not a plan, and we don't know that he could actually come in and be productive. So I understand the idea that it's a need. I still have it as a huge draft need, but I do see a scenario where what Sean McDermott said yesterday is true, and they roll into camp. Maybe they add some guys for depth and camp bodies to get through, but that they want to work this out. And they believe getting Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde back together leaves one hole. And while we see it as glaring, they believe that the talent around it can hide that hole.
All right, I'm back with Aaron Quinn from Cover One. All right, man, enough talking here. Let's get into the mock. First, I want to pull up last week's mock draft. This was our first. If you watch us on YouTube, the screen's up. If not, audio set, I'll read it off to you. Round 1, we took linebacker Jack Campbell from Iowa. 2nd round, Matthew Bergeron, tackle from Cuse. 3rd round, tight end Luke Schoonmaker. 4th round, defensive end Yasir Abdullah from Louisville. 5th round, Broderick Martin, a defensive interior lineman from Western Kentucky. And then in the 6th round, our last pick, we took a safety, Brandon Hill. I was just about to sarcastically say they're not going to do that again based on Haps or Rapp signing, but that's bullshit. When it gets to the late rounds, you just take good players and you'd work on developing them. BFF did not like our draft, bro. Grade of a C, and that's because largely Jack Campbell is considered a reach, at least in mock draft simulators. Anyway, so that was our draft. I liked it. I went back and I started watching
we might do it again
on Campbell and Bergeron. And I'll tell you right now, if we did 5 of these drafts and we came away with those 2 guys with our first pick 5 times, you wouldn't hear a complaint, at least from me anyway. But all right, so let me get this all set up here. If you're watching this on the YouTube side, get the right screen here. Is that the right look? I can't remember.
You're asking the wrong guy.
All right, so let me pull it up here on my screen. So we got the 7-round mock draft. We're using the PFF model. We got all the settings. I already did them. So let's just start the draft. Let's get going here. And the Bills will be up. We're not going to worry too much about the other picks. I mean, we'll go back up and, scroll up and see what went each round.
Yeah, and I'll try not to be too indecisive this time. Zay Flowers gone like you predicted. Oh man, this guy Darnell Wright continues to creep up. I was yelling at people like 2 months ago. This is what I hate about
from Tennessee, who went 25th in the mock, but for people listening to the New York Football Giants.
This is what I hate about draft season, dude. I was 2 months ago, I was yelling at people for passing on him in like live mock drafts in our Cover One DM group. And now people are saying like he could go in the teens. Like it changes so much based on really not like what changed about Darnell Wright. You just got more accurate information, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of crazy how guys just leap up boards like this late. Like this is late in the game now. And that bums me out because he was a guy that I would love for the Bills pick there. So who's on the board? Who do we have?
Well, I also want to say too, Zay Flowers, a guy that we talked about, went 22 to the Ravens. So he was gone.
Bijan's gone.
John Robinson. It's always fun.
That doesn't make any sense. They have Kenneth Walker Jr.
Yeah, he goes to Seattle. Yeah, this doesn't. Quentin Johnson, wide receiver, went to Detroit at 18. So they add to Lamar Jackson's weapons there in Detroit. All right. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's see who's up there for the Buffalo Bills. Go ahead. Anyone sticking out for you here?
Josh Downs.
Josh Downs is on the board. Yep.
Josh Downs on the board. DeJuan Jones, scroll down a little bit further. DeJuan Jones, Mozzie Smith, guy we talked about again. If you want to get bigger and stronger in the middle and play a little smaller linebacker, that's a guy right there. I think that's a reach. I don't think he's a first round. Well, they have him as second round, right? 34. Scroll down a little bit here. I keep scrolling my screen. I'm such an idiot. Osiris Torrance, a guard. He's there. I think you've upgraded guard enough where you can probably maybe go later for a developmental guy. Jack Campbell, obviously, is here. For me, I think right now, based on where we're at with the Bills, I am between Campbell and Downs. Do you want to go wide receiver and fix that hole and see how linebacker plays out for the exercise of exercising?
Yeah, let's switch it up. It certainly makes sense.
Out at linebacker.
It certainly makes sense. We're probably going to strike out a linebacker. So let's
pretend season. Let's go.
Draft expert Aaron Quinn agrees with Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane, and he thinks that the Bills could run with the Dotson versus Bernard competition. Maybe not. Maybe we'll get lucky. We'll find a linebacker. But in this exercise, we really like Josh Downs and what he could bring to this team. You talked about the receivers. If they all stayed healthy, that's what you said before the mock. That's not a guarantee. Stephon Diggs has been pretty healthy for 3 straight years. You almost got to feel like the laws of gravity, he might miss a couple games.
Sure.
So let's just take a receiver for this exercise. We'll go with Josh Downs, wide receiver, North Carolina. You good with that?
Yeah, I'm good. I think people, the knock that I've seen from people is that the Air Raid Hour put out that this is like a Beasley, and Greg said it too, like Beasley 2.0. I think it's like different than Beasley, but I get the stylistic comparison, and like a shifty guy that's like real athletic in small amounts of space, that 3-cone shuttle type dude. And the Bills are missing that. And I think what people also see is they see the model of the Bengals where it's you have 2 number 1 wide receivers on the outside, and that's the way to do it. There's multiple ways to gain production. You could have a slot wide receiver. The Bills did it in 2020 when they had one of the most historic runs on offense with Cole Beasley in the slot. So depending on your offense, depending on your system, this could be a very productive player for you. So I don't mind a guy that's a little undersized that primarily is going to be a slot contributor being a high used asset here.
I agree. Look, the Bills, we're taking them, by the way. So we'll run the mock, and we'll talk about the simulator. We'll talk about the second round in just a second. Look, the Bills need guys who can get more yards after catch.
Campbell's gone.
Yeah, of course. We knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
While this loads up, there's guys, Campbell, Darnell Washington, Bergeron, who I think 27 is too high, but 59 might be too low. Let's look at it. All right, so the Bills are on the clock now. Pick 59. Let's scroll up here. Where did Campbell go, by the way? Let's
to the Panthers at early, right? Down a little bit. Down.
All right, well, hold on. So
right there, 39.
39, he goes to the Carolina Panthers. Drew Sanders, another linebacker, goes 35 to the Indianapolis Colts. That pick would make a lot of sense, seeing that they lost their linebacker to the New York Giants as free agency. Your boy Mozzie Smith goes 34 to the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
All right. So in this scenario, if we were trying to hope that
people like Jalen Hyatt, He's gone.
Yep. If we like the linebacker, those two linebackers, and we're hoping that one of them will fall to 59,
Right.
neither of them made it to pick 40.
Right.
Again, and by the way, the third linebacker, Trenton Simpson. So there's
Gone.
3 like linebackers. He's gone as well. He goes 41. Wow. So in this mock draft, 35 to 41, all 3 linebackers are gone. He goes to Tennessee.
Terrell Bernard season.
Yep. So
John Michael Schmidt's
there.
gone. This is the part of the draft that honestly I hate where the Bills are at. If you're gonna have a trade up, I think it's trade back into the early second or trade up. I think there's a sweet spot here in the draft for whether it's getting in play for Campbell, whether it's getting in play for John Michael Schmidt's, like guys that could make a real impact. If you could walk away get inside that top 40, maybe in that like early 40 range, man, I think you could walk away with 2 starters this year that you're adding to a good team.
I really think going through these mocks and just doing this second one now, it's really becoming clear to me that in a perfect world, Brandon Beane could trade down from 27, maybe to the end of the first or very early in the second, get an extra pick or 2, and then come up from 59. So maybe you pick twice between 30.
That's true almost every year, right?
30 and 50. Yeah, but
picking this late, like everybody wants to trade back.
Sure. It just really feels this year like that would be the play. All right, so the Bills are on the clock.
So we're on the clock.
We're not
Tank Dell's there. We could have waited apparently a little bit on wide receiver. Although he seems Deontay Hardy signing kind of killed the Tank Dell dream for me.
Sure.
I do like Carl Brooks. Again, I think that he was on our radar last week.
The edge from Bowling Green. Yep.
Yeah, but I think he can play inside out a little bit too. He's a bigger dude. And I think he's one of those action types, maybe. I'm looking up his size, but.
And while you do, Matthew Bergeron is the tackle that we took last week in the second round from Syracuse. He's also
still there.
On the board. Yep, he's on the board.
Yeah, I'll take Bergeron over Brooks. I don't even need to look that up. All right, so Bergeron's there. Yeah.
It just feels like a good player at a position we might think it's a position in need. I'm not sure Brandon Beane does at this point because I think he's really high on Spencer Brown still. But
Keanu Benton would probably be higher than Brooks for me. It would be a legitimate conversation between let's get this guy or Bergeron, and I guess it would depend how true Brandon Beane's words are about Spencer Brown and how he actually feels about Spencer Brown. But I'm going to assume I'm going to be Brandon Beane, and I don't feel good about Spencer Brown. So I'm going to go with Bergeron here.
All right, let's pull the trigger again. All right,
protect Josh Allen. I got to remind myself. That was my ultimate goal, right?
That's been your hashtag all off season, and then you're passing up pretty good offensive tackles in round 2. I
do think the Bills, though, need to draft early on the defensive side of the ball. As much as people hate that idea and they think we need to give draft capital early on the offense for Josh Allen, there's so many ways to add to the offense. Like I think that story is that narrative's way overblown that they haven't added to the offense, and it's cherry picking to say specifically they haven't used first round picks. This defense needs some of that too. They need an injection of youth and not big contracts.
I couldn't agree more. It's fun. It's sexy to take offensive players early in mocks every week. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to see the Bills go defense, maybe 3 of their first 4 picks right now. Sure. Inject some youth and talent there. All right. So the Bills are on the clock here. Round 3, pick 91. I'll scroll up the previous picks. Is there anyone that's really kind of standing out to you here?
Here, I got to full screen it because my eyesight is getting terrible, Pat.
Tank Dell went pick 80 to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Sure.
That's a pretty good value pick there for them.
We went tight end here last time, right?
We went. Yeah, we took the kid from Michigan.
Yeah,
last week. All right, so that's round 3. So there's nobody that's really
sticks
out that we've talked about. So let's go down to best available players. Somebody draft this Tanner McKee running back just for no other reason, quarterback, just so I don't have to see him at the top of this board every round anymore. All right,
Carl Brooks still there.
Brooks still there.
We didn't take that. Keep scrolling down here. I love Tank Bigsby, just for the name. I feel like he's got to have a great career with that name, right?
I think social media would melt down if the Bills took a running back in the 3rd round. If they took John Robinson, if he slipped down, you might, you'll get a division, you'll get a 50-50 case. You take a running back in rounds 2 or 3, I think Bills fans would lose their mind. There's the tight end, Luke Shoemaker. He's still there. Yep, he's the Michigan tight end. He's still there. Don't know that I love a tight end in 3rd round anymore. because I really would like to move up and get Darnell Washington in the second if this was my mock with trades.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Let's take Carl Brooks. He's a guy that I've liked in mocks. I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to impress Bills fans a lot, but I think he'll give them some versatility in maybe resetting a clock on whether it's Basham or Epinesa, whoever they end up moving on from. Gives you another developmental guy that maybe you can restart that rookie thing behind. And there's no loss here if this guy isn't a guy that contributes right away on anything other than special teams. I think you still have a deep enough rotation at that back end. What we're looking for an addition of would be somebody to come in like a Justin Houston minimum type contract where he's going to be under that comp pick formula.
Sure.
That can just give you some third down stuff till Vaughn gets back. But other than that, you're not making huge investments into this.
I don't mind the pick at all. So the edge rusher from Bowling Green, that's our third round pick. So the Bills will be on the clock here. Round 4, pick 130. Let's go and see who we got on the board. I don't know that there's
Voorhees would be one again. Tuck that guy.
Guard, you know what?
I didn't even think about that while we were there. That would have been a pretty good pick.
A guard though,
with the last pick, dude. If you could tuck him away, because think about this too. Like, I like what they've done at guard. None of those moves are solid. For sure going to work out. Keep filling that until you hit on the interior offensive line. And the worst case scenario is you have better backups.
Sure.
And at some point, Mitch Morse is going to get, he's getting up against age. He's going to be out of there. You got to find some rotation that can maybe do both things. I don't know. Bates isn't a sure thing. I would get better at that position. And you don't have to make that decision this year, right? He's not going to play this year.
Right. When you get to the third or fourth round, you're not necessarily drafting surefire starters. You're drafting quality depth that could develop into starters.
And this would be a guy that would be talked about in that like early second round, if not for that injury. So this is like, what kind of value can you get, assuming that he recovers from injury, right?
Tank Bigsby, the running back that we just talked about, went pick 106 to the Indianapolis Colts. All right, so now let's take a look at the board here. Scroll down a little bit. Let me know if you want to look at any positions. Abdullah, that's an edge guy from Louisville. We took him last week here.
Too stocked up there. We're going with
Brooks. Absolutely. We're not taking him again.
You got some running backs. Cam Jones. I don't know that he's the fit for what this defense wants for full-time linebacker, but I don't know if you're getting a full-time linebacker back here. But that might be a guy. Scroll up, running back. Rashawn Johnson from Texas. Sorry, scroll down a little bit. The running back there from Texas. He was at the dinner with Brandon Beane or Bill's front office during when they were with dinner with Bijan Robinson. He was also there, which is interesting.
Which guy? Oh, Rashawn Johnson. Okay.
Rashawn Johnson there from Texas. Just an interesting note that there's been some running backs back here. Spears was a guy that Tajay Spears. We just heard that they had a private dinner and workout with him as well. He's probably off the board in these mocks, I would think.
Yeah, he's not available.
No. But that would be a guy maybe we should look into a little bit more. It seems like they're actually in on that a little bit. I know that we say that every year that Brandon Beane's in on that.
Can you see them taking a running back though?
My only thing is
what happens if they do?
If reports are true that they're like taking all these guys out to dinners and having private workouts with these types of guys, that's a lot of effort to just blow smoke. And for what gain? Like to make the Jets go up and take another running. Like I just don't see the play in over investing in the process of getting to know these guys.
You're right. I just don't see the fit though. I mean, where does he play?
Damian Harris isn't a lock. Damian Harris is not a roster lock. You can move on. I don't think they're going to, but you can move on from Hines for not much. You can make Hines just a punt returner. Like nothing's been given. Like as much as I like these players, like if Tajay Spears hits in the fourth round, like thank you, Naheem. Like go return punts. Thanks for the, here's a Super Bowl ring.
Let's take a quick look here. I want to go to interior defensive lineman. Is there any out there you like? Because that could be a position that I think the Bills might address. I mean, we're in the round 4. I don't know if any of these guys are.
Broderick Martin, but I think we can wait. Right, we're at 137. We're pick right.
Yeah, we took him in the 5th round last week, and we got a D grade from BFF for that too. By the way,
I like Broderick Martin. I don't think that's a bad pick, but go back to the overall board again here.
Yeah, here we go.
We're back at all. Scroll down a little bit.
Couple of interior defensive linemen are at the top of the overall board right now.
I got to look at some of
Kobe
these
Turner.
guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of these late defensive round interior guys, I'm going to have to take a little bit deeper of a look at. Let's go Cam Jones here and walk away with a linebacker, even if it's a developmental guy. Let's just.
All right, we're going to take Cam Jones.
It did not swing well for us in this draft.
No, well,
right.
I don't know.
And let's go get my guy Broderick now.
All right, so we're going to go here. We're in the 5th round.
We don't pick again to 205 if I want a guy.
Oh, exactly, man, for sure. I'm trying to find him. We got to go
right
way
there.
down here.
You just scroll up one more. I do like
Roderick Martin. All right. So on the audio side, I'll set the stage. We're in round 5. The Bills got 2 more picks left. We're at 137. We're going to pick for a second straight week. Interior defensive lineman Broderick Martin from Western Kentucky. And now we're going to go on to our last pick here. I'm still getting used to, by the way, the PFF draft model. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I was just used to the draft network over a couple of weeks where I can go and check where we're at. Because honestly, I start to forget what players we've even taken at this point right now. Like in the 2nd round, I can't remember. I don't think we took Patrick Bergeron this time, did we? I don't even remember. Or Matthew Bergeron, I should say. I don't even remember. What the hell? I know we didn't take a linebacker, so we had to take one in round 4. I do like Josh Downs in the 1st round. I think he could be a really good player for the Bills.
Sorry, I was also looking up. Martin is 6'5", 330.
The linebacker?
Broderick Martin.
Oh, Broderick Martin.
Just for those of you like Greg Thompson that like large human beings. I think that qualifies as a large dude.
Look, defensive tackle, before we get to this last pick here, defensive tackle is going to be a position that I think they're going to address. They might just run it back this year. There was a report, not a report, it was on the transaction wire that Jordan Phillips was visiting the Bills, which I thought is kind of funny. Mm-hmm. He's still recovering. He had surgery. He probably ends up back. Ed Oliver's not getting traded. They're probably running it back at defensive tackle. However, a bunch of these guys are going to be free agents after this season too. So it's a good time to draft and develop a good interior guy. All right, so we're here 6th round. We took a safety from Pitt with our last pick last week. Let's take a look here. Is there anybody? This is just find a good player that you like, that you think you can develop.
Looking for guys, either practice squad developmental guys here.
There's that Ronnie Bell name again that we talked
about. Honestly, I just lit up a little bit when I saw him. I got to walk away with him in one of these. This might be it. Scroll down a little bit here. Muhammad Abraham, I think I'm butchering his name, would be another guy I would look at here. But we didn't go running back yet, did we?
No, we haven't taken a running back.
Puka Nacua would be another one I'm looking at here. But we went Josh Downs, right?
We took a receiver in the 1st round. I just don't see a path to a second drafted receiver on this team. Could be wrong, but it would take an injury. But I just don't see a path for a second wide receiver to make this team.
Let's go with scroll down and go with Muhammad Abraham.
Muhammad Abraham, running back, tailback from the University of Minnesota. All right, so this is
need a camp body at the worst, right?
I'm interested to see it again. Who cares about what PFF grades our draft here? But
they should at least maybe give us a little bit better on the 1st round pick because it wasn't technically a reach, right?
We got a D grade for Campbell because they just thought that he was such a reach. Now,
although as a Bills fan, would you feel? I personally think that even if they took Campbell on a reach, I'd feel like that's a better grade for the team. Like that's my problem with PFS. They don't know the team. I think Campbell is a bigger raising of the floor of a position than Downs is.
When you
look at this, B.
Yeah, so the grades are much better this time. We got an overall draft grade of a B.
It's not a bad draft.
I'll read them off in a second, but I will say we didn't take him, but I would feel really good about the Bills taking Jack Campbell in the 1st round. Go get your middle linebacker for the next 5 years, and you're done with it. I also think of Sean McDermott being a defensive-minded head coach, whether we like it or not. We don't know, but if he likes Jack Campbell, I see it being very difficult for Sean McDermott to not take somebody where I think it's a pretty gaping hole. And then again, one last point. If you like those 3 linebackers, if you don't take them at 27, I think it's pretty much a lock that you're not getting them at 59, any of them. So you would have to move up in round 2. All right, to recap this draft, we took first round, 27 overall, Josh Downs, wide receiver from North Carolina. PFF grades a B. Second round, for a second straight week, we took offensive tackle, so we did take a tackle again. Matthew Bergeron, a B+ grade. Third round, defensive edge, Kyle Brooks from Bowling Green, a B+ grade. Best grade, actually, of anyone we've taken. The fourth round, Cam Jones, linebacker from Indiana. I'm going to go do a little bit of studying about him this week now. C+ grade from PFF. Fifth round, for a second straight week, we took interior defensive lineman Broderick Martin from Western Kentucky. PFF does not like him for whatever reason. A D grade. And then in the last round, we took a flyer on a running back, Mohamed Abraham, from Minnesota, and they gave us a C for that. A B overall. Oh, what do you think? What do you think? You look at this draft right now. You there, buddy? All right. Well, at least Aaron Quinn's at least the audio went out on him at the very end of this podcast. Again, Josh Downs, Matthew Bergeron, Carl Brooks, Cam Jones, Broderick Martin, and Mohamed Abraham, the running back from Minnesota. I lost Aaron. It's the end of the podcast anyway, so I thank him for doing the show. Thank all of you for listening. And I will be back. I have an episode in Imperial Live Series, doing that live stream 8 p.m. on Thursday night. And then, of course, as always, on Tuesdays, Joe Yurden's with me. And then on Wednesdays, Aaron Quinn will be doing a third mock draft next week, and that will have trades included. Again, thank you, everybody, for listening. And I'll see you again on Friday. Take care.